The one way I've heard that you might be able to save Eugenia Cooney's life is if you can get her sectioned. That's something in the States where basically like Eugenia Cooney lives in the States, but since she's an adult, then you pretty much can't forcibly have her admitted against her will unless you can get a court order, convince a judge to issue a court order, convince a judge that she's unable to care for herself, and then that judge would issue a court order to have her taken to a hospital. In other words, you'd pretty much have to prove her to be mentally incapable of taking care of herself, which in her case, being an adult, that could be very difficult because it shows that she's able to financially support herself through her YouTube videos and other things that she does. I understand Eugenia Cooney is well off, or I believe her to be well off. Unfortunately, about the only way she could be admitted to hospital against her will, if you're not able to convince a judge to get a court order to have her forcibly admitted, or if you can't convince a judge that she's mentally incapable, is unfortunately if she happens to lose consciousness, if she happens to go into cardiac arrest, if she happens to faint, which in her medical condition is a possibility since she is severely underweight, severely malnourished, then if she fainted, went into cardiac arrest, and someone calls 911 for her, they'd take her by ambulance to the hospital and admit her to the hospital. But even then, once she regains consciousness, as an adult in the U.S., she would probably be allowed to refuse help. And as long as they find her to be mentally sound, she could refuse help since she's an adult. Like, I believe, that's the way the law works in Canada. I believe the U.S. law is quite similar from what I've heard. Other than that, I guess you can't really force someone to get help if they don't want to get help. Like what a lot of people have been doing is giving her loving, caring messages, stating that they'd like to see her get help. They'd like to see her live for a long time. It would be nice if one day she listens to those, but we have to face it that it's entirely possible that she might not. We really don't know what the future holds for Eugenia Cooney. Hopefully she does get the help that she needs, but yeah, that's basically what I've heard, is you can get her sectioned in the U.S., but that would take convincing a judge that she's unable to care for herself, which I believe would be a difficult thing to do. I guess all that everyone can keep doing is not be cruel, not be rude or vulgar about it, but just try to convince her through kindness that she needs help. Maybe try to convince her family as well, too. Try to convince her family that she needs help. And just hope that one day she listens before it's too late. Like, as we could see from one of her latest videos, one of her cosplay videos that she made within the last week, that she seems to just be in worse shape than ever. Hopefully, Eugenia Cooney is able to get the help she needs before it's too late.